Hello everyone, and thank you very much to Elisa Privitera, co-founder of Trame di Quartiere, a social enterprise, community cooperative in particular, based in Sicily, and aim to promote and facilitate services and research practice for an urban transformation based on the values of inclusivity and the conception of diversity as a resource. This is an engineer and architect with a PhD in planning and design from the territory and environment at the University of Catania, and a Fulbright visiting fellow at the University of Santa Barbara in California for a research project on the development of capabilities to manage and enhance territories at risk. Welcome, Lizzie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mirko.
Thank you, too. The first question, why was Trame di Quartiere born? What are the problems you intended to address, and why did you decide to take part of that?
So thank you for this question, and thank you for having me. So the story of Trame di Quartiere is thickly connected with the story of the neighborhood of San Berillo in Catania. The neighborhood of San Berillo can be considered somehow an emblematic place to reflect and understand more about the themes such as urban regeneration, social innovation, migration, social exclusion and social inclusion, also the tension between bottom-up and top-down policies. So the story of San Berillo itself is very important for all these topics. Long, short story, San Berillo was a theater of a failed top-down renewal plan, due to which the original social urban fabrics has been destroyed partly, and the not destroyed part has become what now is known as San Berillo, namely one of the worst neighborhoods of Catania, where all the excluded people from the respectable city, especially migrants and sex workers, could find a home. In the meanwhile, the landlords of the building of this neighborhood were more and more disinterested in their properties that were often occupied by people in need of home. And because of this, year by year, these buildings became unstable and in need of restoration. So we are in a place where, in short, we have people in need of home, in need of space, and on a side and the other side, we have buildings that are in need of restoration. The, let's say, mainstream narrative about this place was hiding the real reason why the neighborhood was laying in this status. And it was also emphasizing like the gentrification as one of the only solutions to regenerate the neighborhood. And it is exactly in this context that Trame di Quartiere born, and born with the aim to fill such gaps. In fact, it started as a community mapping research project involving both young researchers and local communities, with the idea to create a community map, let's say, with the idea to map together the social, historical, and cultural values of the neighborhood. And from this research community-based project, some of the participants of this project decided in 2016 to create a social association, then later in 2020 was converted in a social cooperative of community. So the meaning of Trame di Quartiere is exactly means like wave plot of the neighborhood, because we want to underline that our intention is to start from the relations between people as a fundamental step for doing everything. In fact, one of our first activities has been the realization of a series of web series documentaries, but also we created a permanent exposition called Narrazioni, where you can see the story of San Berillo from the perspective of the people living there. But also you can see which are the current problems, the current challenges. And our main, let's say, and then I will be happy to talk more about this later, but one of our main goal has been and challenge has been the recovery of a beautiful 19th century historic buildings that today was converted in a social space and also in a social housing. And that was our most demanding and innovative project to show how we can experiment with a more inclusive urban regeneration.
Thank you very much. About what you do daily, which kind of services you offer, and what are your users?
Yes, so we offer several types of services. Let's say that we can classify our services in two main types, cultural and social services. Nevertheless, these two are never very separate from each other. So the cultural services are all a series of events that can be presentations of a book, musical events, food events, and then these events are always very much connected with the story of San Berillo, but also with its cultural, multicultural fabrics, as well as with the problems that you can find in the neighborhood. So in addition to these cultural events, we do have a lot of social services that can be like more basic services of proximity, such as, just to give an example, you can charge for free your phone, you can use our toilet for free all the time, is open to everyone, you can access Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi all the time, which are very important services. If you are, for instance, a houseless person, or you have a situation of housing emergency. And in addition to this, we host a lot of info points of other associations inside our headquarters in San Berillo. These other associations have these info points, and they promote a lot of help and support that can be work-related services, services for migrants, health and psychological support. So we do have this service of hosting other info points. In addition to this, also our cafeteria, since we have a bar inside our headquarters, and I actually suggest you to pass by for taking an amazing Italian espresso in case. And also our cafeteria itself is a social space where clients that most of the time are residents can find an help, can find support, can find orientation, can find a support that can help them with the daily issue they have. So we are experimenting through the cafeteria, through these info points inside headquarters, a sort of community neighborhood welfare system. So we do provide proximity welfare system that we self-organize, and together with other associations, together with the community. Finally, for sure, the biggest service we provide is the social housing system. In fact, since 2-3 years, we won a very important grant project, thanks to which we could restore most of our headquarters, Palazzo dei Gaetani, which was in part converted in a cafeteria, in space for the cultural events, but also was converted in a social housing. We host 15 people that are now living in our social housing. They pay a symbolic rent, but these houses actually are meant to be temporary accommodation for all those people who come from a situation of housing emergency. So that is the biggest service we offer to the community, and that also we think is the most, let's say, important, innovative. We would like to also spread more, experiment more in the future.
Thank you very much. How is it going today, and how much or what you set out at the beginning has come true?
So thank you, Mirko, again. So many things are going very well. We achieved most of our goals, but I would like to say that most of the time we thought that something was important to do. It happened also that we have to change our mind, because perhaps what is important for some of us was not maybe important for the people living there. So we also needed, in some case, to really turn upside down the perspective and try to, first of all, with the idea to try to understand the real needs of people living in San Berillo, and then according to that, figure out possible solution. So this is to say that we did achieve a lot of results, and I do believe that the most important and challenging one has been really to convert a previous abandoned space, which was Palazzo dei Gaetani, in a new, vibrant social center, both for the neighborhood of San Berillo and its citizens, as well as for Catania. But at the same time, a very important thing we learned is that we always need to challenge our methods, the way we approach, challenges, and also the way to approach, find solutions, and really change the perspective, and starting from the needs that people have is the best way to really achieve a better and more democratic and collective solution.
A quick focus about feedbacks from territory and its stakeholder, public and private. Was there any resistance? And if so, how did you face and overcome them?
Yeah, thank you. This is a very important question. Also, because every time you do something, you always will have a kind of answer. Not always the answer is in line with what you thought at the beginning. So we definitely got several types of answer. I would say that thanks to the many years of activities that now are almost 10 years of activities, we did involve many people, many stakeholders over the time. And thank you to that, we actually also, let's say, were able to participate and collaborate on some specific projects, so that many people now are our allies somehow, and we did involve both private sector, social private sector, and in some specific cases, also the public sector. Thanks to this means that these people, these stakeholders, these organizations, but since they were working with us, they were also supporting us in different steps of our activities. And I think that expand the alliance, expand the people you work with, really help you to complexify the project on a side, but also to make simple, because you distribute the responsibility and also you involve more people that then support you in your project. Nevertheless, we have to say that we did get some resistance. I would say that one resistance sometimes can come from public administration, not always, but can happen. Above all, when you are trying to trigger a more radical, deeper social change or social innovation change that is out of the bureaucratic cage. Since many times public institutions are kind of trapped in some bureaucratic procedures, when you propose something that is out of that bureaucratic procedure, mainstream procedure, that can be perceived as something too new. Another thing that happened to us, that we have to say, it's true. When you talk about urban regeneration, when you talk about migrant inclusion, that are all topics that really are part of our daily activity at Trame di Quartiere, not everyone in the community, like large community, in our case, the city of Catania, is in line with these ideas. So you can receive some kind of critiques on that side. Nevertheless, we do follow some values that are the basic principle of our daily action. So first of all, let's say that if you have different values that inspire action, can be normal to have different than vision on a similar topic.
And what are the essential, necessary elements, characteristics, ingredients to replicate your project in another territory, another context in Europe?
So thank you for this question. I think that each project, at Trame di Quartiere in particular, in San Berillo, somehow is unique. There are some characteristics that really are unique. It's very difficult to find similar, like equal situation. Nevertheless, you can find similar, comparable situation. And I think there are some, let's say, keywords, key characteristics that really are important to take into consideration. A very important first key characteristic is really to have this capacity, this willing to change, this willing to question your own view. So you have to be very, let's say, curious, open to change your own view according to the project itself. There is no one project that is linear. You always have bottom moment, up moment, and so on. So you always have to be able to reflect, self-reflect on what you're doing and on the feedbacks you received, and in case to adapt. So this ability, let's say, to be self-reflective is somehow resilient, somehow to be able to adapt according to the feedback you receive along your project. Another characteristic, especially if you are a collective organization like we are, because we are a social cooperative. So this means that we are more or less between 10, 20 people as a core group of our organization. What we learned is that we really have to be able to listen to each other. So this ability of sympathetic, to be able to understand the other person or the group in order to work together. So this means to be very humble also, and to try to understand the other people's view. And once you understand the other people's view, that's the moment in which you can really agree or disagree and also decide together. So I would say another aspect, in addition to the resilience I was telling before, is really this ability to listen and to democratically choose things. And then another element, a secret ingredient, let's say, is to be very passionate. In order to carry on a project like Trame di Quartiere, you really have to be, let's say, really have to believe in this project, because it's not always easy. Most of the time it's difficult, it's complicated, it's time demanding. So because of that, you really, I think, need to be passionate, put your passion, and have a vision. According to this vision, work hard in order to achieve that vision. Finally, I think another big important thing you have to do is to be able to cultivate relationship. Speaking about involving other communities, other associations, public institutions. It's very true that alone you don't go anywhere. We really need to find alliance with other people. And if you believe that your project is a good project, you have a good vision, a good idea, then you need to find alliance to work with to achieve that goal altogether. And also, most probably, if you expand the network of people you work with, most probably you will have also more fun.
Thank you so much for your suggestions. I totally agree with your ingredients: resilience, cooperation, collaboration, listening, passion, vision, and networking are the ingredients for any kind of social enterprises. And
thank you.
Just about social innovation, social impacts, how did you dealt with problems of social exclusion affecting your most fragile users? And how does your project generate a positive impact in terms of social inclusion and/or environmental sustainability?
Yeah, so it is very important to starting from the most, let's say, fragile users, also because it is our first goal. So we do deal with them in many ways. I have to say that also is the most complicated, because speaking about having this ability to listen to each other and also to be sympathetic, for sure the more difficult exercise is doing so with migrants that have a very different background from you, and it's sometimes very challenging to really deeply understand the other viewpoint, especially if it's so different than original background. So we did mobilize several types of support and help. One of them, a few of them I already mentioned it. For sure, we are as a cafeteria, as a place, we're always open to all migrants living there, and so there is a daily support that really can be very basic. Some basic services I was telling before that maybe are very small but can be very useful, because if you provide free Wi-Fi, free toilet, free charge for your phone, and so on, somehow you create a happy island that, regardless the color of your skin, regardless of the country of origins, you find home. You have a place where you can sit, have a chat, have some food, have some water, and taking care of your own stuff. So first of all, I would say that this very basic proximity service, I think, is one of our daily activities. Every day, our social worker, who are also in the bar, because in our cafeteria, actually, we do have social worker working there. They do provide this kind of, total global support. Then, in addition to this, we do have these info points that is can be very helpful, because most of the issue migrants have is the language issue, and many offices like working related office, migration documents office are far away, is another part of the cities, and maybe can be very complicated sometimes to reach these places. While in this way, in the place where they live or where they stay, that is San Berillo, they have this info point. They can just come over in 1 minute by walk and have this information service. That is very useful, very important. Then I think that the housing, the social housing is another very important service we provide and support. Unfortunately, we do have just 15 places, 15 spots inside accommodation inside our building. But again, still, it's a way to provide house for people, despite temporary accommodation for people that come from housing emergency. And we have to take into consideration that migrants, much more than anyone else in Italy and Europe, really are affected by the housing crisis, because most of the time people do not what rent legally a house to migrants. So it's a very big issue for them. And we do provide some accommodation. And while they stay there, we do provide other support service. For instance, we provide a work scholarship. So for 6 months or 1 year, they can work and also get a salary while they are living in our housing, social housing. So to say that we actually have all this series of support. But in addition to this, that I would say is a more traditional way to support people. So I give you something, which is very useful. It's very based on solidarity, of course, but somehow you answer a need that is an immediate need. We also are trying to mobilize a more long-term support, which means to actually enable migrants themselves to organize. So what we have done has been to involve migrants in some activities of, let's say, empowerment activity or self-organization activity. For instance, more recently, we have done an intensive course about, let's say, activism organization on the housing topic, because they have this issue with access house. So give some tools of self-organizing so that migrants don't need always to ask us for having a house, but they can self-organize themselves in order to actually organize a request for house, or organize more in general a democratic request. So we try also to enable, let's say, migrants to self-organize themselves and somehow to be more independent from other people giving them a service. So that's are the most important service we provide. And I would say that the positive impacts come from these activities we have done. And I would say that also the biggest impact we have received is really to create deep relationships. I mean, to create bonds that are human bonds. Somehow, some friendship. We became friends with many of these people living in our housing, social housing, or living in the neighborhood. And this means it's the most human, if you want, almost romantic, but the best, really to realize how much you can create this deep relationship with people by working together with them, collaborate together with them, organize a series of activities, projects with them.
Thank you very much. Just another question and a brief answer is,
yes.
In hindsight, is there anything that you wish you had done in another way?
So, yeah, thank you for this question. I think shortly, I would say that speaking about self-reflections, we always can do stuff else differently, but I would say that first thing we could have done differently was it would be like to involve more landlords, because it's true that Trame di Quartiere now has this very beautiful building, but it's also true that most of the buildings around Trame di Quartiere are still pretty abandoned. So I think that we should have speaking about involve more stakeholders, involve more people, work harder in involving landlords of these buildings. And at the same time, work harder in a more constant way, almost like with a very big pressure, the public institutions. Why we did involve in many occasions, but somehow in a not continuous way. So the dialogue is needed in a more permanent way. So I think that these two things are the two things we would have done differently otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lizzie, for being with us, and good luck to Trame di Quartiere team for their important social impact work. Bye.
Thank you very much for inviting us.